And just to support some of what you're saying about being a community, or I firmly also support what you're saying. I was working on a project that I began in 2012 on 54th and Sawyer in Chicago Lawn, Beach Park area. So that project that I started has actually gone on to happen every summer since then. And it's a mobile program that's been traveling throughout the city. West Inglewood, Beach Park. I'm proposing a project for South Shore. But I also have found in-kind support by a corporate entity that's an art supplier. So I think that there should be a strong component that deals with support, in-kind, philanthropic, a grant, a block grant. I'm not sure, but I just made a year living here in South Shore, and that first when I moved in, I felt like I was uprooted from Fort Sawyer and thrown into this area, but I just had my doors locked because I didn't know what to expect, because there was 76 coals, and I was very frightened. And unfortunately, some of what I hear in the media has conditioned me to interpret a space to be a certain way. So I want to turn that around and use that as something more productive. So I'm definitely in support of what you're saying, but I think being an anchor with schools, with the church, are so vital, because there's no grocery store by my house. I mean, some of the schools are closed, and so those are entry points for youth to take pride and invest in their communities. So I want to do something proactive that's collaborative and not parachuting or some type of inreach, rather an inreach rather than an outreach. I think it's really kind.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, sorry I'm late. I'm Sarah. I'm the Youth and Family Director at the South Chicago YMCA at the Street.
Roll up and join us.
Yeah, sure.
We're talking. Do you have a first memory of art?
Actually, my mother.
Yeah.
Her background is in arts and education and retail, and I know Roman. He knows my mother. As he was speaking, I'm like, I know that voice. They worked at the Boulevard Arts Center together, and so
cool.
I was introduced to dance, I was introduced to photography and all of those things, and that kind of has been a background within our family growing up. So.
That's great. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Eat. I'd like to kind of piggyback on what Ricardo was saying about perceptions of neighborhoods. I mean, there's a perception. South Chicago is very diverse. For most neighborhoods, it's not one race, one class. Let's have a conversation about the perception of, like, will people be fearful coming into South Chicago? You know, what are the barriers to get people to come here? So,
well, one realistically, the city's afraid. It's going to be very difficult to not have fear, because fear is survival. When you become too ooh, you say, wait a minute, you're going to get yourself in trouble. But it'll happen. But it's not going to be.
but possibly creating like a safety zone. It's the Y, the library. I mean, how can we address the fear for our youth? And maybe any of you can talk, Angela, or Roman, or Arlene, about what do you think the barriers are? And maybe Sarah, because you're at the Y, do you feel there are any barriers for kids?
I think not being known. I think we get a lot of people that come in that are like, we didn't even know this Y existed. Mm-hmm. Or you tell them where it is, and they're like, so what street is that close to? And then when you say commercial, they're like, oh. And it's like, yeah, but we offer swimming, we offer these things, and we're open, and we're looking for people to come in. And so we're also trying to bridge that gap of getting people in the neighborhood into our building. Because a lot of times I think the people that are in the neighborhood aren't necessarily utilizing the facility. And so we're pushing to try and do a dance program this summer, and a basketball and a flag football, so that we can get youth in our building, because we're missing them. And our space is limited, so that's another barrier that we face, but we feel like we have something to offer, and we just have to figure out how to tap into it.
Can I ask a question about that, if you don't mind? There was a YMCA near my house where I initially started the project, and they offered the liability insurance to do the project there. Mm-hmm. But it's so membership driven that the participants that were coming in for the program were not necessarily students or participants from the neighborhood who could not afford a membership to the YMCA, and so that limited them. But they allowed them to come in just for that because it was free. But are there opportunities there that
we
are
offer
not membership
financial
driven?
assistance for families. And so if the family comes in and says, oh, the membership is just too much, they bring in their financial information and we can scholarship up to 35% off of the cost. And so we have that, flexibility there, but then we offer a member and non-member rate as well. And so they can pay just for a course or a class if they just want that, if they don't want to do the monthly membership. So there are some ways to work around it, but I mean, even doing an art project, we've been trying to figure out how we can partner now with SkyArts. And, Natalie, she's not here, but she's our aquatics coordinator, and she's very passionate about the arts as well. And so she's like, okay, well, how can I get in so that I can bring it into the Y, but that we kind of serve a dual purpose to create that atmosphere. So.
But you have problems like getting members in, because the Y has been there for years. I don't want to give away my age, but I used to go to that Y in high school.
I think that a lot of people have kind of been pushed away, and I don't know if it's the staff or it's the appeal or if it's what's being offered. And so that's kind of where we are now, is trying to figure out, okay, let's do a survey with the members we have to see what is it that you want to see and try and figure out how we can offer it. But we, go off of the standard protocol of we offer fitness classes, we offer aquatics, we offer swim lessons, and it's kind of just there. And so how do we move forward to bring in new things that people are interested in? We don't really have the space maybe to do something that's technology driven, to teach people how to use computers or things like that. And so it's an area that's being missed, but then who do we partner with so that we can say, well, you can go here for those resources, so that's a part of it too.
So where are the youth going if they're not going to the Y, the library, and
I
SkyArt?
think my understanding is a lot of parents make them stay home, right? They don't let them go outside. They have to go home after school, right?
You want to stay home. If it's not after school, then you just go home. Or from home.
But it's funny you say staying home, because when I started the project, I would take my dining room table and put it right onto the street, and that's where the project was, because I didn't have a space. And when I did that, Blick is like, whatever you need, we'll send it to you. And that's how it started. Sometimes you have to create a space to have a space.
Right.
And the street was that space.
And I think a lot, too, and I don't want to overspeak, and Dominique just came in, and someone else did, and you can introduce yourselves. And tell us your first memory with art. Sorry, we've all introduced ourselves. Dominique can go first. Go ahead, Dominique.
Hi, my name is Dominique Emerson. Actually, when I was little, I first here, and then I went to Memphis, and then came back when I came back to the art center to learn more.
Are the schools helpful in...
Wait, she's going to introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Brianne Miskey. I'm currently the art teacher at Jane Addams Elementary. And it's my first year teaching. And I'm just coming back from after school, which is why I'm so late. My first memory of teaching art was definitely being around 5 years old. My mom making me go to, well, I loved it, but she would have me go to art classes. It's sort of like an outside source as well, because I didn't have it in my school growing up, so she always wanted me to really be involved with it in some way.
Cool. Welcome.
Thank you.
Eat.
You're not asking.
I also want to say, before you say something, Christopher, is I think too, we've done canvassing in the neighborhoods. We'll go 3 blocks away and they'll say they never knew we were here. We had a student that worked here when he went to Washington High School, because his art teacher, Miss Rossi, who was at Marsh, sent him over here. He went to Our Lady Guadalupe, used to look in here. I never had a window in the front door, so it was a little intimidating. I mean, walking into a place with no window. But he would look at it and think it was a fee-based program, so he never came in. So I think it's perception of what something, not only the neighborhood and the people in it, but what an organization is. I mean, they might look at SkyArt and the library and the Y and say, well, those two are fee-based and I'm gonna go to the library, which I hear that they get inundated with kids, you know, after school. So, you know, it's also perception of, you know, what something is and fear. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have open houses once a month for the community, for anybody to come to. So it's like, just so people can just walk in and just be there and chill, and they don't have to draw their face, they don't have to draw someone else. You know, they can just see the facility and be more comfortable with it. Because I think a lot of parents are, you know, even though they let their kids go, some of them are so protective that they don't let them out, you know. So it's either or.
I think the message we have to get across is this is an invaluable resource for the community and the kids. You know, where I live, we pay to send my son to art class at the local arts center, and, you know, it could be pretty expensive, you know, to do so. And, you know, I just think that every kid should have the experience and the accessibility to participate in something like this.
Well, that's another perception thing, the importance of that art plays in the life of children. As you see in CPS, it's rare that they have, you know, they have an art teacher and music teacher, but the value that people put on education in poor neighborhoods, or I mean art in poor neighborhoods is pretty low. That, like, when the kids come here, if they get in trouble in school, the parents won't bring them here. But I tell the parents, well, they're socialized better here, they're really under control, they're learning, they're productive. If they're not doing well in school, this can help them, but they don't see that. They see that they like coming here, so they take it away.
Well, you know, that's a perception you have to change, because, you know, it's interesting. You don't want to punish your kid by taking away a constructive activity. You know, make them do some work around the house or something else. Or don't let him hang out with his friends.
Well, how do you
the
change that
neighborhood.
perception though? Like, throw it out there. Does anybody have ideas about changing that perception? We all
I
believe
just know
it.
because I had the same experience with my son, and this, you know, where, you know, he did something one time that he got in trouble for. So his mother put him on punishment, and, you know, he would get home from school and finish his homework, and, you know, 3:30 or 4 o'clock, he's out hanging out with his friends on the street. You know, his classmates. And I said, well, why would you take away a constructive activity that he likes, like soccer, and let him, if you're going to let him hang out, we may as well put him in the constructive activity where you know it's, you know, constructive and order.
Right.
And, you know, ultimately she agreed.
Yeah.
Because she was like, yeah, I guess you're right. You know, so I do think...
Well, one of the things I was thinking is, unfortunately, I think there's a perception about art in general, that it isn't as valuable as other things. And I think when resources feel tight, art feels like too much of a luxury for the practicality. I don't view it that way. So I think that's another perception. But I think the other thing is that people have to experience it. So I think if you want people in the neighborhood to know how important it is, it has to be important to them too. And that's having events or where everybody's making a mask or everybody's painting, you know, doing finger painting, all the adults, everyone. Because it sounds like, and you guys can help me with this, but it sounds like there's some core things in place and have been in place for a long time, but there's been a drift from them being sort of core to now being sort of marginal, you know, like the Y or the library. Well, maybe the library a little bit more, but because at one point the Y, I'm sure, was very active, I'm going to guess. But now it's like fewer and fewer people are using it. So it sounds like there's some gaps. I mean, you guys tell me. It sounds like there's some gaps that have developed that you want to start, because I'm sure the church is the same way, right? That's a very core piece to this neighborhood, but now there's some gaps between, and you're now this new big entity that could really start making some connections. I mean, that's, you're asking how to change it. I don't know, but I think participation.
Identifying the gaps.
Right, yeah, and participation. Like, come on over, we're all going to square dance. And everybody will be like, what? make it like, you know, make it corny for everybody or something where nobody feels, you don't want anything that people feel like, you want everybody to go, yeah.
I think the thing, not only in this community,